Americans, you are fortunate to live in a country that was founded on principles that have paved the way for freedom. The ideas valued and portrayed in the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution with its Bill of Rights have such self-evident truth as to reveal the flaws in our past as well as the injustice of our day. When the founders wrote that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, they were acknowledging universal truths that would eventually set free their own slaves. Principles such as the separation of powers set forth guides for limiting the abuses of liberty. Natural rights, as simple as the right to life and self-defense, are accepted in these documents as sacred truths of freedom. These principles are as old as the earth and find their source in the Creator. When we hold these truths as precious, we can stand up and speak with moral authority and put to shame those who would take away our freedoms. Our history is full of heroes who have appealed to these truths and won freedom for those burdened by the abuse of power. We as a people would do well to realize that such principles and these heroes are the heritage of freedom for all Americans.
Good morning, Americans. This is Mr. Asplin's Citizenship course. And today I have a real special lesson about the First Amendment and an exclusive interview with Mr. Draven Spectre. I often reflect on the words written in the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and they go something like this. They came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. They came for the unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a unionist. They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. I think about this because I know there are groups out there that are opposed to natural rights, and they might even be using their rights to shut down the rights of other people. There's another quote that goes like this: I disapprove of what you say, but I defend to the death your right to say it. I struggle with that idea too because I don't want to die for lies. But maybe by defending their freedoms, maybe I can convince them of the truth with my freedoms. So let's get to the First Amendment.
Let's begin by reading the text of the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. And I think it's important to state that the Bill of Rights is simply a list of rights acknowledging that these rights existed before the Constitution was ever written or composed. People are born with these rights. You can find this in their state constitutions written before the Constitution. You can find it in the Declaration of Independence. You can find it in the 9th and 10th Amendments. And so when it goes on and we define the word Congress, that's important to remember. Congress, by definition of the Constitution itself, is the lawmaking body, federal government composed of a House and Senate. But I think that we can make this application that Congress can be applied to any lawmaking magistrate or body. So presidents making executive orders, bureaucrats, court systems, anything that is making laws or orders that want to restrict any of these rights is in the wrong. And that would also go for people trying to abuse these rights. So that's important. Let's go on to the first right. And what I like to do is help you understand that religion by itself has a lot of implications in relation to what we are born with in regard to our natural rights. And here we go. Down at the bottom of each of my slides, I've shared with you what are some other natural rights that are connected to the right of religion. So Congress is not allowed to make any laws, or government is not allowed to make any laws favoring one religion or another. They're not allowed to establish a state religion and impose that on other people through force or burdens or taxes, whatever it may be. But I want you to recognize here at the bottom, we are born with the right to worship. We are born with the right to make spiritual choices, to use our body and our mind in religious exercise. We can express or share our religion with other people. We can defend ourselves morally, pursue happiness, make contracts or agreements with other people in relation to moral agreements and religion. We gather or associate with others, which is later on in this amendment. And we can privately or publicly exercise worship, and we, most of all, hold our government accountable to moral guidance. Our government is not supposed to impose upon us certain religion, but we from the bottom, the people, impose upon the government a morality that we think is important. The next right would be the freedom of speech. And speech, as you'll see on the next slide, has to do with quiet, private speech, writing, or even the press, where it's been published and proclaimed unto all. There should be no limits. And if there are limits, if the government starts saying that, hey, if you stand up in a movie theater and you yell fire, that is wrong speech and you'll get in trouble for that. Well, that's an unnecessary rule, because you can call foul on that. So somebody gets up and they say that they have a gun, or they're saying there's a fire in the movie theater, whatever it may be. The people in the movie theater can sue that person and ask the government for justice from that person, because they can establish harm that happened from that person's free speech. And when we get to the freedom of the press, sometimes in the freedom of the press, there has been times when people have published libel or slander or even threats. And when these things happen, you can make lawsuits. You can make petitions, and you ask the government, and you say, government, please protect my right. It's just been violated by freedom of they have used their freedom of speech irresponsibly. And it's important to remember that. So the freedom of the press is actually the publishing of our speech. And that could be on the internet or radio, whatever form we are using. Okay? We also have the freedom to peacefully assemble. And it says that Congress or any lawmaking body is not allowed to limit or abridge the right of the people to peacefully assemble. And you can come up with all kinds of strange scenarios, but it says that the government shall never do that, Congress specifically. And peace, I think, implies that there is no imminent threat of violence, presenting clear and present chaos, inhibiting or harming the freedom of others. It's important that we have the freedom to assemble. It has to do with where we work, has to do with our education, has to do with our travel, and there are so many other natural rights connected to the freedom of assembly. And finally, we'll get into the petitioning of the government. The government's purpose is to protect our rights, and that's how we stay safe. When we ask or request help or justice from the government for wrongs inflicted by the government itself or by other abusers, we are asking the government to protect our natural rights. And yes, we are also limiting certain number of our rights when we have a government, but the government is supposed to protect them and not to overrule them.
It was challenging to capture an interview with Mr. Spectre. His reputation precedes him as a shadow advocate and a rights entrepreneur. I was able to catch him as he was traveling through Wisconsin to work on a project, and this footage has been pre-recorded and it's in an undisclosed location. I will advise you to listen with extreme caution. Mr. Spectre is mysterious, shadowy, cunning. He might seem reasonable, but his lies are subtle. And he has a strange attraction that can woo you right into his sinister work. I only present this interview as a warning to you. There are deadly spirits out there who will take every opportunity to use and abuse us into complete submission.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today. about our First Amendment rights.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to share my important work on these rights. It is important that people everywhere know that they can find comfort in expressing their ideas.
What is some of the research you have been doing on the First Amendment?
It is not only research, my friend, but we put it to use in creative ways.
Would you be able to explain to me some of your creativity?
I would love to. Art is the primary means by which we choose to express ourselves. It is through performing arts where we include visual, musical, and literary voice.
How do you work these forms of expression into your program?
The agenda is chaos. Right now, we have a beautiful and cryptic street display of the diffusion of death through pathogens. Actors dressed as seeds spread fear and death. Our performance is interactive with people on the street. We press our thumbs in ash and then place our thumbs on volunteers' heads. All the while, each actor or actress is performing expressive dance while singing their pathogens into song. It is through chaos we find peace. We create peace through destruction of the modern cultural institutions. Those who are most oppressed resonate with our performers. We take advantage of class conflict. We suggest a new ethos that redefines concepts of justice. We like to call it a holy mess.
Wow, that sounds depressing. I would agree that we have the right to speak freely about what it is we want, but do you think that intentional chaos is harming the rights of the people?
Sure, it's harmful. All free speech is a vice. It criticizes and breaks down walls and barriers. It chips away to what we hold on to so dearly, and people search for others of like-mindedness to create a false peace. We will continue to use this vice until pandemonium erupts. Then the supreme rulers will step in.
I must state that I am a little uncomfortable with what you are telling me. I don't believe that we will find anything good through chaos.
Of course, I am uncomfortable with your speech. I hope that my ideas conflict enough with yours so that you are broken into turmoil, your false peace is destroyed, and find that through darkness you will see the light.
Thank you, Mr. Spectre, for the interview today.
Today I shared with you our rights written in the First Amendment. It is important that we practice our rights responsibly and we don't give them up easily. Ideas have consequences. And to be downright honest, I am pretty freaked out by Mr. Spectre and his ideas. But I don't want to just have the government shut him up. I prefer to fight them with truth. And in the battle of ideas, the victory of truth is sweet. But when lies succeed, people suffer. And neither will they be safe nor will they be free. I'll leave you with one question. How is a free market of ideas important to maintaining a functional representative democracy? Until next time, stand strong, be merciful, and take care. Good morning, Americans. This is Mr. Asplin's Citizenship course, and I have a real simple lesson today about the First Amendment. And